Hi there, it's Catrin from 3Ps. Welcome to the gym. I'm in the new gym that's mid-construction, so look at the backdrop, you can get a sense of where we are. So, what is this video about? This video is about why the Bodybuilder's diet is a disaster from a training perspective and also from a nutritional and health perspective. Now, I'm a personal trainer, I'm an expert in weights, I'm also a personal coach and a hypnotherapist, and this is my view, but it's also the view of our nutritionist. We have a nutritionist called Maia Lloyd, who has written a series of weight loss books for us. She's a weight loss specialist, and she and I have compared notes in relation to the bodybuilding diet. I've got friends who are bodybuilders, she has clients who are bodybuilders, and we agree that there are some things that you can do to change your diet to turn it from into what is basically a health disaster into one that is much, much better for you, and actually will also achieve the same results. You'll still get shredded, you'll still be ready for competition, but you won't put your body and your mind through the sort of punishment that you do with the way that most bodybuilders get ready for competition and also operate in the off season. So there are 3 points that I'm going to cover in this video. The first is the essential nature of how bodybuilders operate, so whether they're on season or off season, and how that sort of that cycling nature it can be really unhealthy, and how there are better ways to operate from all year round perspective. The second point I'm going to talk about is the actual contents of a bodybuilder's diet, and the fact that it is very, very restricting. The result of that is it encourages and it can create the circumstances in which you can get binging. So you can get a binge eating cycle starting, binge starve, which again is really physically damaging, but it's also emotionally and mentally very punishing for you. And then the third point I'm going to make about the diet is that because it often, certainly pre-competition, becomes very low carbohydrate, but you can get a situation where you've got completely unstable blood sugar, which affects everything. It affects your energy levels and affects your moods. So, they say jokingly, that bodybuilders getting ready for competition often are really stupid. Well, because they know they are, because they've got not enough sugar in their system. But I think it's broader than that, because if you haven't got enough sugar in your system, it's very difficult to function in all ways. And if you're restricting all sorts of micronutrients in your diet, you're affecting all sorts of metabolic processes, which mean that you just aren't operating at 100%. So those are going to be the 3 points I'm going to cover. I'm going to read from an excerpt from one of Maia Lloyd's books, and I'll put the link up here as well. And this book is a weight loss book where she talks about extreme low calorie diets, and she talks specifically about the bodybuilder's diet. I think maybe we'll start there and then come back to the 3 points that I want to make. So let me just read that section of the book to you. I've got the manuscript here. Right, okay. She says, why eating like a bodybuilder doesn't work. There are many things that bodybuilders get right. True bodybuilders strive for physical balance to create unity and symmetry in their physiques. However, they are not nutritionists. They are hyper-competitive, and it is all about competition. It is not fantasy to suggest that if you offered to inject a bodybuilder with a secret jug that would give them 5% body fat overnight, most would say yes without asking any more questions. There are exceptions to this, and some bodybuilders do develop some expertise in nutrition, but the majority do not. They take their nutritional advice from other bodybuilders and just eat what the herd eats. So what are the good things that bodybuilders eat? A lot of chicken and tuna, antioxidant-packed sweet potato and high-protein boiled eggs, milk and yogurt. Not so good are the post-workout sugary drink and pre-workout coffee, high in caffeine, which disrupts blood sugar. The real problem with the bodybuilder diet is it is so restrictive. The proof of how grim it is lies in what happens in the off-season when they don't compete. As they know they won't be judged competitively on their physique, many loosen the nutritional reins and rebound eat. In the same way a dieter who falls off their diet immediately stuffs themselves on all the things they have not been allowed to eat, so many bodybuilders overeat in off-season. The result is they gain a lot of weight. Logic suggests that if their on-season diet was a bit more interesting, they wouldn't gain the weight in the off-season. Once they have gained the weight, they have to take it off again, and this means both working out really, really hard and cutting calories right back. This combination is incredibly punishing mentally and physically. As an example of this, a new client came to see me at one of my clinics. He was a physique model, and to me at least, he looked amazing. So what did he want to see me about? The issue was the cost he was paying to be lean. He was exhausted most of the time and actually had a mid-afternoon nap. This client was 22 years old. Why was he sleeping? His energy problems were undoubtedly caused by what he was eating. Breakfast was malted loaf, a semi-sweet processed bread. The bread was a highly refined wheat flour loaf with added dried fruit for sweetness. This was a cocktail of sucrose and fructose with high fructose corn syrup added for good measure. This cocktail guaranteed him a sugar rush immediately after he had eaten, followed by an energy crash within 90 minutes. He felt dreadful mid-morning. Lunch was the same every day, a grey-looking piece of broiled chicken breast and a large serving of white rice. No vegetables, no salad. It was low in nutrients and healthy fats and off the scale in sugar, thanks to that white rice. And dinner was identical, broiled chicken and white rice. The boredom must have been unbelievable. This, in my experience, is a pretty typical bodybuilder diet. He was using the sugar to power his workout and the lean protein to build muscle, but he had nothing else to make the rest of his body work well. Low essential fats meant unstable or low mood and poor skin. A lack of antioxidants from the vegetables and fruit he wasn't eating was damaging his immune system, making him more liable to infection and problems associated with overtraining. The narrowness of his diet meant he was also likely to be depleted of other key minerals such as iron, zinc and magnesium, contributing to his feelings of tiredness and anxiety. Finally, a critical lack of fibre was putting him at risk of developing digestive problems and high cholesterol. The most important reason not to adopt a diet like this is how it makes you feel, though. Even leaving aside the fact that your brain and hormonal systems cannot work effectively without healthy omega-3 fats, the massively restrictive nature of this sort of diet makes it impossible to be part of the world. You can't go out to eat, you can't eat at friends' houses, you probably have to eat alone, even if you're at home with your family. As for my bodybuilder client, we worked together to agree an eating plan, which he was confident would not raise his body fat, but I was confident would also give him energy to do more than sleep. We upped his vegetables, with a lot of encouragement. He did not like vegetables, he said, and swapped the white rice for brown to increase fibre. We increased the variety of his meals. Key to all of this was creating a healthy brown bag lunch to stabilise his blood sugar so that reactive hypoglycemia didn't make him sleepy in the afternoon. Out went brown boiled chicken and white rice. In came Mexican bean dip with vegetables, lean coleslaw and sweet and sour pork. All recipes in this book. I'm pleased to say he came second in his weight class at his National Physique Championships. So clearly his ripped state was maintained, but his mood and energy levels were massively improved. So that's a story from Maia Lloyd, who's our nutritionist, about a client of hers. Now, so she deals with the 3 points that I want to make. The first one being this idea of being on or off season. And there, I mean, the joke is with a lot of, champion bodybuilders is off season, you often don't recognize them. You wouldn't recognize them in the gym because they are so much heavier in the off season. And the reason for that is because they have to restrict so much when they're competing that they rebound eat. And the point that Maia Lloyd is making, and the point that I agree with, is if you just made your diet a bit more interesting, without, you don't have to, you're still going to get ripped, but you can do it in a way that involves a bit more interest than chicken and white rice twice a day, then you won't rebound eat to the same extent. And why is that important? Is it all about the medals? Well, of course it is about winning. You don't compete if you don't want to win, but it's also about your mental health and your how you feel about your body. If you only feel great when you're in super duper state, you're setting yourself up for failure, because inevitably there's a cycle in any fitness routine. You'll have periods of being hyper fit and periods of being less fit. But if you are allowing yourself to rebound eat to the extent that you're getting these seesaw of being in shape, being out of shape, you just emotionally, that's a really tough place to be, because you will feel terrible in your off season and only feel yourself when you're on season. So if you can actually avoid that, then I would suggest it's worth looking at. And this, as Maia Lloyd said, the secret there is to add interest to your on-season diet. If you're interested, I'll put the link up for the book. The aim is to obviously work out more vegetables in particular into your diet. So, as she did with her client, is add some salad, add some vegetables, at least in your dinner and your lunch, add some of that to your diet, because that will help with the boredom in your diet. The next point I wanted to make, and she also alludes to that, is that the restrictiveness of the diet tends to increase the likelihood that you will binge. So it increases the likelihood that you'll actually get into a binge eating cycle, which is, again, emotionally very, very wearing and a very difficult state to be in, where you starve and binge. A lot of bodybuilders suffer from that. I was watching a really interesting movie, but it was a wrestling movie, and Channing Tatum was in it, and I remember the title. I put it up on the screen. But in that movie, there's a young wrestler who's in competition, and he's staying in a hotel, and he goes to compete for his first round. And the way it works apparently in wrestling is you compete, you do several matches in your first round. Depending on your points, you then either progress or you don't. And he had been expected to do quite well. He had found the round much more difficult, and he was obviously coming out of that round in a stressed state. He went back to his room, and he then just stress ate. So he just ate and ate and ate. He just ordered from room service and stress ate. And the result of that, obviously, was he then sort of went into a sort of hyperglycemic sort of state of going, sugar peak, sugar low. And his brother in the movie is also a wrestler, and he realizes that he's done a despairing act and realizes something wrong, and goes to the hotel and finds him there, realizes what's happened, because obviously the decimation from all the room service is all over the hotel room, and knows that he's not going to make the weight, because wrestlers are like boxers or like jockeys, they have to make weight. And basically gets him on an exercise bike and has to train him, for hours and hours to get rid of all of that excess, those excess calories that he's binged on. Now, it's a really interesting and distressing scene to watch, and you don't often see on film men binge eating. You see women binge eating, not men binge eating. But the emotional and physical toll of that life, you get a real sense of how hard it is. And I think my suggestion to you would be, you don't need to be like that if you are a bodybuilder. I do know bodybuilders who have a much healthier view of how they rip up. Yes, they do restrict their eating in their competition cycle, but not to the extent of it becoming so monotonous that when they come out of competition, they just binge eat. So you don't have to, but I think the problem with the diet is it tends to encourage that. The third point that Maia Lloyd, which again I really agree with, is that because it's such a restricted diet, it's missing a lot of essential micronutrients. Those are your minerals and your vitamins. These are essential for your metabolic processes and for your general health. So if you're not eating enough vegetables in particular, you're not going to feel well, you're not going to feel mentally alert, your hormones are not going to course through your body, your hair and nails won't glow, all the stuff that is about being healthy, which surely where we want to be, is just not there. Where I sort of come to on this is that although a lot of bodybuilders don't eat well, there are some that do, and I'm a great believer in what is the one thing you can do to make a massive difference to your diet. And what I would say about that is, start to read about nutrition. I'll put in the notes, there's a couple of recommendations of books on bodybuilding nutrition. But the one major thing you can do, and you can do it today, is you can add a green juice to your diet. So, if you're living on broiled chicken and rice, fine. But at some point during the day, if you can drink a vegetable juice, it will make a massive difference to the balance, the healthy balance of your diet. I'm not here talking about a smoothie with lots of fruit, or a juice made from pineapple and mango. Those are packed with sugar. That's not going to help you lean up. That's not going to help you stabilise your blood sugar. I'm talking about a juice that is predominantly vegetables. I make my own in the morning, and my recipe is a small apple or half a normal sized apple, a whole lime, 2 lettuces, 1 cucumber, a bag of spinach or a bag of kale, and that all goes in my juicer, and that makes 2 large glasses of green juice, which I drink first thing. And it takes me about 6 minutes to make it and wash up. I can do it that fast. So if you have a juicer, or you've got the money to burn it, you can go and buy a juicer. That's the one thing you can do for your bodybuilding to really just soup your diet up and make a difference immediately. Longer term, I think it's really important that you and we all educate ourselves about what is healthy long term. I've got a great friend who is a bodybuilding champion, and he always says to me, he's now touching 40, he's not competing anymore, and he says to me, it was great to win those trophies, but what about when I left the stage? What about when I had the trophy? What then? And he very much regrets the fact that, he took a lot of steroids as well, that he didn't look after his health in the way he should have done, and he's actually paying the price for that. He's got some back problems now, he doesn't regret, but he thinks he probably could have done it in a more intelligent way, and I would tend to agree with him on that one. So if you you are very focused on winning, great, but do look at your diet. The bodybuilder diet, as I said, can be a complete disaster health-wise. It doesn't have to be. I'm going to do a separate video on what would be the things you can do to your diet as a bodybuilder to increase its level of sort of nutrient value. But this is really what I got to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a rating. That would be great. Please do subscribe. We'd be lovely to have you. This channel is all about fitness, particularly weights. It's about health, nutrition, resilience, and mindset. So it's all about success, both in the fitness sphere and outside it. I'm a coach. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a new neuro-linguistic programmer, so I know about mind-body connections. We've also got a Facebook page. You'll find us at facebook.com/3Ps Media. Do leave me a comment. I answer all questions. If it's a good question, I'll do a video just so to put out there what your question is and what my response is. Otherwise, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you soon. Bye.